Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. I just found out about this. Let me see if I can fix the lighting here a little bit. I'm a little bright here. So it took me a minute to get everything set up. Now that's way too weird. What is happening right now is the Georgia Senate Committee, I think it's their Oversight Committee, yeah, is meeting, and today they will hear witnesses. The reason why I'm not playing it just yet is because I want to give you a little bit of an introduction as far as what is going on right now. And I don't care to hear this guy that's speaking right here. I've listened to him since it started roughly, 45 minutes ago. And he's from the Secretary of State's office. He's a lawyer, and his job has been so far to give excuses. Now, this man right here, I actually would like to listen to, but I still want to tell you what I think before I press play on this. He is giving a runaround, a just massive runaround. We've already checked the voting machines. We've done independent audits on them. Like, we've checked the software. Everything that's on there is supposed to be on there. Can you guys hear me okay? And so on and so forth. But my thoughts as he answered that question, I'm thinking, yes, the software that was supposed to be on there is still on there, and we have a problem with the software that was supposed to be on there. And he's like, oh, if there was a hack in there, we would have known. And I'm like, not if it was. So anyway, he's saying there's investigations, and they are investigating, but at the same time, he's trying to give the runaround of everything is on the up and up. We have he started out with this big long thing saying we have the most secure elections on the face of the planet. We've got all these laws, and of course everybody's obeying the laws exactly as they should. And here's the explanation for why people showed up. And their names were on the voter roll, or excuse me, they had already had a ballot sent out to them absentee, and that's why they couldn't vote and all this stuff. He's giving all of these just complete runaround answers, and he's good. I'm not buying a word of it. And so I wasn't in a hurry to come to you guys while he was speaking and being questioned, because I truly believe that his job coming here today is as spin doctor for Brian Kemp. Solely. That's his job. That's what he's doing. I wouldn't say he's doing a particularly good job of it, because the questions that are being asked so far, these people aren't buying it. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and unmute this, and you can listen, and I'm going to give commentary. And if you don't want to listen to it with commentary, you can watch it on RSBN, Right Side Broadcasting, live right now without me. But I definitely am probably going to be interjecting a lot here.
Or some are closed?
Yeah, a little more than that, yes, ma'am.
Have any resulted in issues that would suggest any widespread fraud in the presidential election?
What we are seeing so far is what I would kind of call the normal amount of, I don't think fraud's the right word. I like to think about it more of kind of legal votes or illegal votes.
Sure.
We have about 300 instances of alleged double voting, people that voted absentee and on election day. So we're looking at that. That's significantly down from what happened in the primary based on some protections we put in place. We have about 70 instances of potential felon voting. So that's what we're looking at. But no, we have not seen anything that would suggest widespread fraud or widespread problems with the voting system.
No evidence that the machines switched votes?
Correct.
No evidence that the wrong winner was declared?
Correct.
Of the presidential election in Georgia? Isn't there already a procedure for the Secretary of State's office to intervene through your investigators and the state elections board in a county that is not managing an election properly, or via a court case? Aren't there two methods by which that can be accomplished?
So there is, the way it works now is if there's an allegation that a county has not done something properly, we open an investigation, that goes in front of the state election board. The state election board will, if they concur that it's been a violation, refer to the AG's office. And that usually results in a fine to the election board or a consent order where we put in place things to try to fix it. There's not a mechanism basically for state intervention to say, you know what, you guys keep on failing. So something more needs to change rather than just dealing with specific, specific kind of case-by-case interventions.
So there is a method by which changes could be forced and questions could be raised in procedures, but you cannot currently take over an entire county's system.
I don't know if I would agree with the way you put the first thing, but
There is a procedure for you to address problems that you have identified in a particular county's management of their elections currently. And if the state elections board agreed with you, then that could happen?
It goes through the state election board, and it's really a kind of post hoc, individualized, here's what needs to be done to fix that one issue.
Thank you. Would you agree that there was a significant decrease in issues reported with Fulton County for the November election versus the June election?
Yes.
One last thing. Is it not the case? I understand your characterization of the left questioning elections after 2018 and the right after 2020. But I want to just raise something and ask you and push back a little bit, because is it not the case that there were lawsuits filed that federal judges agreed with that were showing that eligible voters were unable to cast ballots after 2018, and indeed we changed the law to reflect that right here in 2019, and that here there have not been successful court challenges or evidence raised in the same fashion? Would you agree with me?
No. I would say that in not one single one of those cases after 2018 was a single eligible voter shown not to have been able to vote. You're correct that some federal judges entered some relief. There was a bunch of court cases brought this year. You know, some federal judges entered some relief. Then it was stayed by the 11th Circuit.
Well, that was different though, because that was like a sort of pre-voting lawsuit that you described earlier, right?
Well,
what I'm saying is there was relief granted by federal judges after 2018's election. And we don't need to debate it. I just wanted to lay out there that
I will
do
say,
believe
from my
there's a
perspective,
difference.
in the same place, it is eerie how similar it feels, the allegations made after 2018 and the allegations that are being made now.
Okay. Now, I wanted to address one thing that the whip raised. I recall arguing quite strongly in whatever year it was, 2019, I think, that we should purchase a less expensive, more secure system in line with what the computer science experts and others were telling us. And that was not agreed with. So it's very interesting sitting here now, all these attacks on Dominion. And as you've already stated, there is no evidence that votes were switched, and we were able to look at the readable text. So I'm not at all arguing that there's an issue there with the way this election was conducted. But I want to tell the whip, I still believe we could have gotten a less expensive, more secure system. And to the extent that anyone wants to discuss that in the majority party, I would be happy to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Get that microphone off. Before we drift, no, I'm picking on you.
So one thing I wanted to
You know,
say
I'll
is they had
point out
opened this with
that,
prayer.
Senator Parent has been very helpful to me in this process and
It's a
trying to get
laid back
witnesses here.
atmosphere.
And I appreciate your help.
For being an
Let me
official
also
atmosphere.
mention 3 more senators
If
that
that
I'm
makes
aware
sense.
of joining us.
This is Georgia
Senator-elect Russ Goodman is joining us.
talking about here.
Senator-elect Sheila McNeil, and Senator Brandon Beach was in the room just a moment ago. So we welcome them as well. And let me also, before I forget again, outside on the table with where you can get the affidavits is a list of some other places that you can file reports of election irregularities or observations or what have you. So that is available. And if members of the committee want a copy of this, we'll be sure to get you one. But just wanted to make that announcement. I think the next hand that I saw was Senator Robertson. On microphone you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Germany, thank you for coming down.
Mr. Germany.
I know you guys have been really busy. I appreciate how responsive your
That
office has
cannot be
been.
his last name.
Mr. Teasley is always standing ready. When I called him on his cell phone, once he realized that the people using his cell phone number were actually friends after a while. And I appreciate the effort Mr. Sterling's put out as a PIO for 8 years. I understand the heat that comes from a lot of these situations. But you made a comment when you first started discussing the 2018 election because of the absolute chaos that occurred there, that y'all knew that 2020 would be no exception. So
I would not say that there was absolute chaos in 2018.
Well, and
There was a lot of people making claims.
Right.
But in terms of the election process.
Right.
I would say that it was very orderly and regular.
And I'm thinking inside the silo, it always seems that way. Out amongst the individuals that vote, the constituents that we represent, it's a little more chaotic than that. And I think even today we can say that. As much control as I think your office has shown, the Secretary of State's office has shown, what you guys are getting into the office are a lot of times filtered from what we're experiencing out there. And I think the whip pointed that out perfectly when he talked about going out and having breakfast and coffee with constituents in certain parts, and the information that they receive and where they receive it from really doesn't matter. But it causes a lot of chaos and a lot of concern. So, but to get to my question is, knowing that there were issues in 2016 and coming into 2020, what did y'all take? What actions did you take? Was there a crisis management plan put together? Because I've sat on a State Board of Elections call, and a member of the board, I believe it was, or it may have been a member of your office, rattled off a dissertation of claims and false claims that were out into the community. And of course, he discounted each one with what I believe to be facts that you guys have gathered that these things did not occur, which is very encouraging. But the problem, once again, is the audience that you're reaching with that information is very limited. So my concern is, did y'all put a crisis communication plan together between the two elections? And if so, where did it tear? Where did it break? Where our constituents are getting 3 and 4th and 5th hand information, even from us in some situations. And is there a plan to strengthen that between now and the runoffs?
That's a great question. So I would say, you mentioned the 2018
Doesn't he
election.
remind everybody of
One
Pete
of the big
Buttigieg?
weaknesses that we found was people were saying stuff that was not true.
That's right.
And then we had a hard time basically breaking through. Now, of course, one big difference in 2018 and 2020 is in 2018, the mainstream media took these claims and ran with them. In 2020, they're not, but the right-wing media is. And that's where, some of your constituents obviously get their information. What we've seen in both of them, to me, is they're both equally wrong in 2018.
I'm sorry, I gotta mute this guy. If you want to watch it straight up on RSBN, I'm not offended. Go ahead and go there. I think you guys come here to Leah and I for truth. And this guy, I can tell. I'm not muting him because I don't like what he's saying. I'm muting him because I want to correct what he's saying. Because what he was about to say there and what he was inferring just then is that in 2016, the mainstream media came out and they said XYZ, all right? And people were believing it. And it was, and then in 2020, the mainstream media isn't doing that, but the right-wing media is, and they were both wrong to do it. You can't have it both ways. You don't get to have it both ways. One side is telling the truth, okay? And we know that it's not the mainstream media. I don't even call it right-wing media, just the truth media. We are the ones that are exposing the fraud. We are the ones that are bringing you the facts. So we know what Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood and CJ Pearson there is the one bringing the case in Georgia, right? We know what's being brought there. And Brian Kemp stands everything to lose. So that is why that's why this guy, this Pete Buttigieg guy, his last name is Germany. That's why he's saying this. Now, Clarence in our chat on YouTube wanted to know if Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood are representing attorneys. No, this is strictly, and maybe I should have started with this, and I guess maybe I didn't. Apparently, this Senate committee took about 4 weeks to put together this hearing, pretty much since the start of the election, and has gathered their own witnesses from people contacting them saying, this is what I saw. I really just wanted to live stream for you guys the witnesses, but since I didn't know when that was going to start, I thought we will just painfully sit here and listen through all these people asking questions of this Pete Buttigieg guy from Brian Kemp's office. So we're going to continue to do that. But that's what's going on. Clarence also says, yeah, as far as 2020 for chaos, yes, even myself living in Georgia can tell you that. So yes, we'll get back
here to testify today. And as the meeting notice stated, we reached out to DeKalb County, to Fulton County, to the Secretary of State's office. After that, Senator Robertson suggested bringing in Muskogee County. He reached out to them, and we had hoped to have them here, but I understand there's been a problem this morning, and they will not be able to attend. So can you just share with us sort of what's going on there very briefly?
Yeah, they finished up with the recount yesterday, and I think she got an email from the SOS saying that they had to get certification done by the end of business today. And so Nancy Boren was going to be in Muskogee County and in Columbus doing that. And my whole purpose for inviting Ms. Boren here is that consistently she has been recognized as one of the absolute cream of the crop registrars dealing with a city of approximately 200,000 people that can get fairly chaotic during elections. And Ms. Boren has just been the absolute example of how elections are managed. And so my reason for reaching out to the chairman, and I appreciate him agreeing with me, was to have a standard shown so that we could see those that are failing to reach that standard a little clearer when they talked about how they ran elections. And I do apologize, but as professional as she is, she follows advice and she follows the rules and regulations. And I just appreciate her agreeing to start with, but I completely understand why she wasn't able to be here.
Thank you.
Nancy Boren is undoubtedly one of the best election directors in our state.
Yeah, and I thought for that reason it would be good to hear from her. But so here's where we stand. Fulton County, I'm having a little bit of trouble keeping up with this, but Fulton County is here. They're going to present to us. We had 3 hours allocated for our meeting. We're approaching an hour and a half into the meeting. My plan is to continue, if you guys will give us another 17 minutes, we'll continue with some question and answer with the Secretary of State. Then we're going to bring in Fulton County. We'll go through the same process with them. Senator C., you had asked to be recognized. I want to get your questions, if you will, and then I've got a few that I think would be good for the whole that I'd like to pose. So, Senator C., you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you first and foremost for requiring masks in our meeting. I really do appreciate that, and I thank you.
You can barely hear these people because they can't
It makes
breathe.
a world of difference when you're talking nationally how Georgia looks. But I want to take us back for a second. I was elected to the House, and I got my training, and I came to the Senate, and that's the year that Georgians elected a Democratic Senate, but a Republican governor, who was Sonny Perdue. We can't forget we got 4 switchers that changed the voters' input at that time. The voters had elected a Democratic Senate, but we had 4 switchers to switch, and that made it Republican. Through that era, I've still been here, but one of the things I heard in your presentation or somebody mentioned about the big change, I know Clayton County, where I live and represent, is part of that change. I want everybody to know we worked hard turning out the vote in Clayton County. Terrell Starr, if you remember him, Bill Lee, strong Democrats. Clayton County is strong Democrats, but working the grassroots and working hard, turning out the vote, helped get us to where we are today. I hear fraud and innuendos and all these other things, but the real deal is work, turnout, makes a huge difference when you can wake folk up and give them a reason to understand how important the vote is to all of us. I just wanted to make sure that you all know that I really appreciate what you all are doing, because I have been part of leadership in a lot of national, because I started on the school board in Clayton County back in the 90s, where I met and built relationships. And to have those folk texting and calling me, talking about Georgia, gives me great pride, and you all play a big role in that. But all the innuendos, we didn't go through all of that when we got 4 switchers to undo what the voters had done in terms of it. Well, some of them didn't get reelected the next cycle, but we had a strong Secretary of State with Kathy Cox. I mean, we have had Democrats, and it's been a long process for me personally.
Senator, you got a question?
But here, my question is, are we going to make sure that we don't just take it just because of the noisemakers? That's my question.
I would say we're doing the same thing that we have been doing since
I'm sorry, I'm
28.
gonna mute the guy. I could have muted the lady. Just because she gave her little soliloquy there. I think that it's very telling that the Democrat there, that woman, is very pleased with the Secretary of State's office and Brian Kemp and all of their efforts or lack thereof. I think that's huge. I do want to answer a question in the chat here from Candy, since I don't care to hear what they're saying. So like I said, if you guys don't want my interjections and you don't want me to mute the people, I am not offended. I don't like to watch other people that do what I'm doing here on our show, but it's my show. If I want to just watch the thing, I don't want to watch it interrupted. I want to watch it through. RSBN is free for you to go watch. Candy wanted to know, why did Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell say that Georgians shouldn't vote in the runoffs unless the senators for Georgia join the Stop the Steal efforts? We really need them to encourage people to vote for the representatives. I would disagree with the last statement, but I get why there's a divide. A lot of people were really upset about Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell saying that yesterday. You're talking about the go along to get along. We have to have the Senate no matter what attitude, right? Like if we lose the Senate, it's all lost. It's all for nothing. Okay. And I understand that. I feel it with you. Trust me. I totally feel it. And it's a very hard stance to take. It's called tough love. It's tough love for our country to say, I am not going to. So many times we're hearing, I voted for Brian Kemp because he was the lesser of two evils. I voted for Mike DeWine because he was the lesser of two evils. We're putting our names behind these people who are rhinos and have not earned our vote. If you will listen closely, it wasn't that Lynn Wood was saying they need to be part of the Stop the Steal specifically efforts, but that they need to be behind the efforts to say this was fraud and we are not going to stand for it, okay? Because they're blackmailing for the vote and it's wrong. And they need to grow a backbone and to stand up and to say, this is wrong. Georgians, I stand for you and I fight for you. And as Georgians, I would have to agree, no, you do not get my vote just so that we can keep the Senate. If you are not going to put it all on the line and come out and stand for this stuff. That's my opinion. That's my stance. I get it that people that I respect disagree with that opinion. You probably do. You said so in the comment section here, and that's okay. I would say each person needs to do what their conscience tells them that they need to do. And here's the deal. They really came hard after Lynn Wood yesterday, not just because of that. And I'll go off on a little tangent here because Pete Buttigieg guy is still here. On Twitter, they came after him. People on the right were even coming after him. But you know what, Ali, he was the young black man that spoke after CJ Pearson, said on Twitter yesterday about it all. He said, CJ Pearson has his own thoughts. I have my own thoughts. Lynn Wood has his own thoughts. Sydney has her own thoughts. Vernon Jones has his own thoughts. And we can all get up on that stage and speak our own thoughts. And we don't all have to agree on them to be part of the same effort that says this is fraud, this needs to stop, right? We don't have to agree on everything to agree on that one thing, right? And so while I respect the other side's opinion, I stand with Lynn Wood. Well, anyway, they came after him because if you guys saw that yesterday, he was on fire, power of God, dropping crazy Christian stuff. And the devil didn't like it. And it made a lot of people who are lukewarm. I'm a good person. I kind of believe in God and I think I believe in Jesus, made them uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, because this is nitty gritty. And you know what I said to Leah? I said, if you're going to tweet out about this, this is what I want you to say to people. And then as soon as I finish this, I'll turn Pete Buttigieg guy on. I said, I covered Gideon's army the other day, the story. Do you remember that? When I was talking about Sidney Powell and the Kraken and all of that. And 300 men God whittled it down to. I can guarantee you, God is going to get the victory for this. President Trump is going to win out in this. And it'll probably be by 300. And anybody that is coming against Lynn Wood, and I don't mean you here in the chat, I mean the people attacking on Twitter. Breitbart wrote a hit piece on him and stuff. They are the ones that are getting on their knees, lapping the water in that story. And they will not get to join the 300 where Lynn Wood will be. Okay? The rest of us are the ones drinking with our hands, and we will be counted in that 300 that save democracy, that save our republic. Okay? So yeah, so that's where I stand on that. Candy says, you're so right. I'm just worried about the Senate. I get it, and I feel it, and it's a tough call. Alex says, the lesser of two evils is still evil, is what I was told.
Your precinct. You can also look up your absentee ballot status. It tells you if you've requested an absentee ballot, if the application's been accepted yet, and then when you mail your ballot back in, it tells you if your ballot's been accepted. So you can check that, whether you vote, and that's the case whether you vote by mail or early in person. You can go check and make sure, okay, yeah, here I am as having voted. The other thing that we put in place this year is a system called ballot tracks you could sign up for and say, I recommended this to my parents and my wife who voted absentee. They were getting concerned about, didn't my absentee ballot count? They signed up for ballot tracks. Right when it got accepted, they got a text saying, hey, your ballot's been accepted. So you're good. So you can sign up for that process as well. And all of those things, help increase security and confidence. People can know this is what, this is how my vote has been treated. And all this is a bunch of individual votes put together. And so, to constituents that are concerned, I would say sign up for these things. Sign up for ballot tracks if you want to vote absentee. So you can make sure, that how your ballot's being handled.
Talk to us just briefly about the investigation and that burden or workload, if you will.
We have 23 investigators. Since the November election, we have opened over 250 investigations. In voting, it really does require individualized inquiries, and you see things on Twitter generally about, here's what I found, and it's kind of a list without an individualized inquiry. To do a real investigation, you've got to. We talk to people, talk to the people involved.
Oh, you mean like Sidney
If
Powell,
it's an
Linwood, and
out-of-state
Trump's
voter, we
team
go
have
to
done?
the address they say is their home address, and we see, are they associated with that address still? So those are the things that we're doing, and it is time consuming. We do triage them to try to, get the most sort of important ones first. And we'll continue to do that. Our investigators are working as hard as they can to make sure that everything that's questionable is investigated as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Is there anything that, clearly the legislature is not in session. The appropriations process has taken place and been approved, but is there additional resources that well, let me do it this way. And I know that I feel like we have extended that opportunity to the secretary, but if there's things that the legislature can do to help out in the meantime, please let us know.
Thanks, sir.
So in the interest of time, I've about used up the rest of the time. Senator Dolezal had asked to be recognized, and I wanted to go to him. We are trying to move to Fulton County at 11, so try to prioritize as best you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Which microphone you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ryan. I'll go quickly. Do you know what hash algorithm was used on the machines? Was it MD5, SHA-256? I know it's probably out of your depth.
I believe it was SHA-256, but I'll have to get with you individually to confirm that.
Was the entire drive hashed?
I'm going to have to get some different people with.
Fair enough. Unless the entire drive
I'm the lawyer.
Understood. Unless the entire drive was hashed, unless you had source code to review, what we've done so far is inconclusive.
I'm happy to send you that, and then we can take any feedback to improve those techniques going forward.
What's the first line of review for the signature match? Who is the person or group of people who review a signature in an elections office?
Good question. So those bipartisan boards I mentioned, they have the power to appoint elections directors like Nancy Bourne in Muskogee County, and then absentee ballot clerks. So it's handled at a staff level in each county.
And what type of training do they have?
The way training works in Georgia is we train the county election directors, and then they train their staff. We did provide GBI training to every county elections director on signature matching at the end of last year.
I think I've expressed some concerns about your settlement agreement. But one thing that's in the settlement agreement that has not been mentioned anywhere that I've seen is that you agreed to allow and consider in good faith providing county registrars and absentee ballot clerks additional guidance and training materials to follow when comparing voter signatures that will be drafted by the political party committees. And to clarify who the political party committees are, the Democrat Party of Georgia, the DSCC, and the DCCC.
So they did submit additional guidance for us to consider. We considered it and did not send it to counties or utilize it for training.
Thank you. Could you get us a copy of that?
Sure.
Thank you. Was there electronic software available for signature match, and was it used, or were there any counties that did not use it? It's my understanding that the Fulton Republican Board of Electors did not certify the election, primarily because the electronic tools that were available for the signature match were not used.
I know Fulton County was looking at what they could do electronically. There was nothing prohibiting them from using electronic means to check signatures. I know they were trying to do some additional things where they would they wanted us to give access to bots to the voter registration system to do some of that work. And we said, no, you can't do that. But there was nothing prohibiting them from doing electronic. Do you know if they actually did electronic signature verification?
At one point, they were considering it. I honestly don't know if they executed. I think they did not.
Is what I've heard about the Republicans not voting to certify because of that in Fulton County accurate?
I've not heard that.
We know they did not vote to certify. I had heard the reasons were, some concerns about absentee ballot signatures. We're going to have investigators follow up with them to see what specifically, so we can investigate those issues.
You mentioned earlier, and I wrote it down, that it's a lot to ask of these election officials to go through the volume of absentee ballot signatures we've asked them to go through. And you mentioned that the secretary does not think that signature match is the best way to verify somebody's identity. Given those two things, and given really the massive shift toward ABM in this election in particular, resulted in 1.3 million signatures having to be approved, why not look at the signatures and have a third party look at the signatures to help guide us and help inform us as to whether or not your assertion is accurate, that it is a lot to ask of them, whether the secretary's assertion is accurate, that it's not the best way, and to give us the tools in our tool belt so that we know looking forward whether we got it right or whether we need to change it.
So we are looking at that from, any kind of individualized specific complaint that we get. We're looking at it. I think what people are asking us to do is let's just look at all of them, all the 1.6 million, because there were some that weren't returned. Frankly, I'm not sure that's something we have the authority to do. I don't think that's appropriate because we open our investigations based off of actionable complaints, and I think when we do as we do that, we will get information that we're happy to share about how this process worked.
To date, how many signatures have you all reviewed?
So we haven't got to that part yet. We are first we get a complaint. We look at our system to see the main complaints we're reviewing regarding signatures are I didn't vote absentee. I didn't request an absentee ballot, but when I showed up, they said I had. So what we look at, say, okay, did they actually request an absentee? Like I said, what we've seen almost every time is they were on the rollover list. They had requested one earlier in the year, and they got one for this year because they had requested it, and they were in that bucket. And then I believe we have also, then we go to the county and say, hey, give us these documents. So that's where we are to do the signature match. Give us the envelope, or give us the voter registration stuff on file so we can look at that. Actually, it wouldn't be an envelope, it'd be an application. But give us those documents so we can review them.
I'm sure some people have. I haven't suggested looking at all 1.3 million. I think it would be valuable, highly valuable, to pull a random sampling from multiple counties in this state just to know how close we got it, and to put that into the hands of people who have been trained and have experience in handwriting analysis.
The point that I
how
would
it's
make
going.
on that too is, I think
They
the
had
point
said
that
they were
you're
gonna
probably
get to
suggesting is,
witnesses,
what we would
but
do
with their
then if it
time
doesn't
crunch, they
match,
still want Fulton
is
County to
follow up
come
with the
and talk
voter
to them,
to see, hey, did
which
you
should
sign
be
this?
interesting,
Because
'cause
it's
they
not
haven't
really the point
certified
of
yet.
did it match or not. The point is, did that voter sign it or not?
and they have a hard lead.
Well,
at
the
12 o'clock.
point
They
is that
to
it
be
should have
done
been,
by,
they should have been
12 or
sent to
12:30.
provisional ballot. That's the point, is that that ballot should not have been accepted, and that ballot never should have been counted. The point would be is that the system failed us, and we have potentially, to your point, we don't know conclusively, even if the signature doesn't match. What we do know conclusively the signature does not match is that that should have been a provisional ballot, not a ballot that was accepted. You mentioned earlier that we send.
So it looks like it's just this feed right here that's we're waiting to catch up on because this one still looks.
We had about 20,000 ballots from those 3 counties alone sent out of state. Do you know how many ballots? We don't know conclusively, even if the signature doesn't match. What we do know conclusively, the signature does not match, is that that should have been a provisional ballot, not a ballot that was accepted. You mentioned earlier that we send ballots out of county if you move out of county. I pulled for the 3 counties who were supposed to be here today, Fulton, Muskogee, and DeKalb. We had about 20,000 ballots from those 3 counties alone sent out of state. Do you know how many ballots, absentee ballots for the entire state, were mailed to addresses outside of the state of Georgia?
No, but we can get that for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He had some really good questions. The biggest question was about hashing this, the computers that have already, the software and the Dominion machines. And he came out and was like asking technical questions and layman's terms
as we've worked to put this meeting together, things have changed.
Because Pete Buttigieg guy came out and he was like,
responsibilities have kind of bubbled up, if you will.
Examined, it's fine. And then this guy
Fulton
comes and
County
he's like, well, really,
has some
you couldn't have done it all the
representatives
way.
here.
And you
I'm
didn't,
not
and
sure at this point that we
inconclusive.
actually have someone from the elections board from Fulton County here. So I'm going to, in defense of you guys, I'm looking at
Originally,
Mr.
that's what they
Teasley in
made
the
it
back.
sound like.
We're trying to get someone from the elections board at Fulton
But
County here to
doesn't
understand.
look- I mean, I
they
don't know how
have
long
work to do
Fulton
today.
County's going to sit here and talk.
Do you guys want to go for a little bit longer, or do we want to go to the it's.
I honestly probably wouldn't have streamed it if there weren't
I
going to
know
be
we got some
witnesses.
questions, and I would love to do that, and I think this is very fruitful. I
it's
just
okay
don't,
if
we
it's
had told
without it,
Fulton
but
County
still.
11 o'clock, they're struggling to get here. I think they're willing to come in a few minutes later. I just didn't want to take advantage.
We're
of you
happy
guys.
to stay as long as you guys want.
Okay, well,
They
so,
have to leave at
I
12:30.
need, these guys might have to go, but I can stay, so you'll lose some of the knowledge.
okay. Well, that's what we'll do then. So I have,
Because the one
I've seen
Democrat lady
Senator
was like,
Harper
and I want to
indicate
thank
a
you for
question,
requiring masks. When the Pete
since
Buttigieg guy, his name's
Jordan-
Mr. Germany, by the way.
who else?
Um,
Am I missing? And,
he was getting
Senator
winded, and I don't
Harbison.
think he was nervous. He
Harbin.
sounded nervous, but it's because he couldn't breathe while he
okay,
was giving his big long monologue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rules Chairman, you're not a member of the committee. You'll be last, but you can ask me a question. All right, so I'm gonna,
Stupid.
I'm gonna go to Senator Jordan at this point. She can reconcile that with the Rules Chairman at some point down the road, how she got chosen over the Rules Chairman.
Right.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Germany, from your remarks, it seems that the use of secure drop boxes was significant for the 11th Circuit's ruling that absentee ballots postmarked by Election Day but received after Election Day could not be counted. Is that correct?
Based on my reading of it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And with respect to that, then, in terms of drop box use, the Secretary of State, are those going to continue to be utilized through the runoff?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there any, do you have any idea if going forward they would be utilized?
Going forward, through the runoff, yes, that rules, it's an emergency rule passed due to COVID. It's been extended through that time. Going forward, I think, the state election board and the General Assembly can look at that and see, is that something that we want to continue going forward?
Okay, and then in terms of the drop boxes, it's my understanding that there was a pretty significant financial investment made in these because of the 24-hour video surveillance and all of kind of the security apparati that were put around it. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, we were able to provide some reimbursement of that through different federal money to the counties, and I think they were also able to get some other grants for that. But that's correct. There was significant resources.
And as you stand here today, is there any evidence that any absentee ballots were not submitted by a registered voter?
I don't know, one way or the other.
With all
Okay.
your like 200
I want to
some
go
odd
back to the
investigations?
application thing, because approximately 1 million people have now applied for an absentee ballot in the runoff. Of course, a huge segment of those are from the rollover list, correct?
About, what, 600,000 are from the rollover list?
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so really, we're talking about maybe 400,000 extra. But for purposes of the public, applications are not ballots, correct?
That's correct.
And in terms of the process with respect to an application, you have a signature on the application, but there's also other identifying information with respect to the voter that is also cross-checked by each of the county election boards, correct?
Correct. First, they've got to be able to identify the voter. So, you know, the voter's name and address, date of birth are all listed, and they use that to identify, is this
Okay.
voter registered?
I gotta,
They find,
here's the deal. It's fine to have all the rules on the books.
I know, right,
There are rules on the books in Detroit
right.
that tell them how this process is supposed to go.
Right.
So when you're listening to this, they're presenting it as if just because the rules are on the books,
Yeah.
that all the rules were followed, just and you can't do anything without
That's the whole
following the
point.
rules.
That's the whole point. People broke the rules.
Which is why we aren't actually looking for new laws. These legislative bodies want to come together and they want to say, well, what do you want us to do moving forward? It's like the whole Second Amendment thing, okay?
Yeah.
Harsher gun restrictions are not going to stop criminals
Right.
from using guns to murder people.
Right.
They are going to find weapons to murder people.
Right.
Harsher rules and regulations are not going to stop people from committing voter fraud. You know what will? Harsher punishments and enforcing of them.
Right.
That's what we're looking at here. So I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to continue to sit here for a little while. There's a Stop the Steal rally in Georgia at noon.
Is it? Okay.
All right? So if these people don't get their act together, I know they were planning on going until 12:30. We don't get any witnesses by 11:45. I'm stopping this stream and we're setting it up for Georgia Stop the Steal rally.
I was gonna say.
All right.
If you don't get any witnesses in the next 10 or 15 minutes, like, you don't need to waste your time with them.
Well, I want to hear what Fulton County. See, we're waiting on Fulton County to get there.
Yeah, but
Okay.
they're gonna lie.
Well, I think Fulton County is one of the counties that hasn't certified because they're concerned.
Yeah, but.
So I don't know who's going to show up from Fulton County.
Is it 'cause
I have
there's
no
anybody
idea.
decent from Fulton County
I have
show up?
no idea. Clarence says it's BS, which is what Michelle and Leah are saying. Yeah. So far, it seems that way. It definitely seems that way.
I thought you were gonna like.
I thought we were going to get witnesses today. It's the only reason why I decided to put this thing together.
Like,
If
the
we're
people
just
who
sitting
saw-
and we're just listening to people from Brian Kemp's office and they're just lying
Exactly.
out the wazoo,
Right.
it's like, I don't care to hear what you have to say. Your office has already dropped the ball and
Exactly.
allowed a touchback.
Exactly.
I mean, seriously, and on purpose. And do you know how much money Brian Kemp's office and gained from this? Millions of dollars. Sidney Powell is going to prove it all, right?
Right.
So all of this is accomplishing nothing, okay? Donald Trump tweeted this out, and Jenna Ellis shared it for people to watch. So I was scrolling through my phone and I saw it and I thought, oh, well, if we're going to have a hearing in Georgia, then I better get it up and we better, whatever. When the chair got up at the start of this thing, he made it seem that they were going to, because they've had so many complaints and they have spent 4 weeks compiling people to come and testify today because of the complaints. I expected to get 4 weeks worth of witnesses of people. It does not look so far like we're going to get that. So, I'm just trying to make a decision here, guys, because I don't want to keep listening to the Pete Buttigieg guy for,
Oh, but he did say, there's no way for me to tell you if illegal people voted with the absentees.
oh yeah,
I really can't tell you either way because we didn't check really.
right. Leah's saying that, I guess you were looking on Twitter that
What he just said.
oh yeah, he said, I can't tell you if illegal people voted.
Right.
So let's see what's going on here before I give up on
Some
it.
time ago, haven't been able to keep up with that completely, but I'm going to go to the Vice Chair, Senator Harbin, next, and then I've got Senator Harper. If there's anyone, and I hadn't forgot about our illustrious Rules Chairman sitting down here. How can you forget about him? Yeah, that's right. I won't have any more bills until you forget. Maybe so. So with that, I'm going to recognize Vice Chairman Harbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ryan, thank you for your answering all of our questions and the things that are there. I think the biggest thing is this, is that we look at a game in a football game, if it's 0-44, we're not too concerned about who the winner is. In this case, we're looking at .28, and that concerns me when it's such a small margin that we're dealing with. Number one question I need to ask is that I understand in one of the precincts that represents my district that on the day before the election, there were updates being done to the machines because of the Senate race with 24 candidates. The machine was having problems in printing that. Is that a true statement that those were being updated on the day before the election?
No. Is this Spalding County or what? Where's your?
I'm going to get to Spalding,
Okay.
but this was in Fayette County. I understood that there were people coming in with USB drives to update machines the day before the election.
We did update the machines to handle how that Senate race appeared. It was based on something that was found when counties did logic and accuracy testing. So in Georgia, we have a really robust logic and accuracy testing to make sure before the election the machines work like they're supposed to. They found something that was, Dominion said it's kind of a 1 in a million thing that they found it. So our election directors, the fact that they found it, I think is just to their credit. We were able to put in a fix for that to make sure it didn't happen.
We have to take
It was
care
not
of
the day
it.
before the election. It was
1 in a million.
It was a couple weeks at least, or maybe. I can get you the exact date, but no, nothing would have been
Very
changed the
telling.
night before the
We
election.
learned anything today. It
One
was
of
him
our
saying that.
precincts has things
Dominion
working on.
told
I
us it was
understand the
1
day
in a
before they
million
were
that we
working, so
found
that was
it.
concerned. I know that in the audit process, we found votes that were on chips. And when we start getting down to, like I said, photo finishes, we don't have instant replay.
That's it right there,
In the
guys.
first audit, we found votes that were still left on chips. Am I correct?
On memory cards, yes, sir,
Memory
that's
cards
correct.
that were not handled, so that issue comes into play. And in Spalding County, if you would, I know that there has been the request for the resignation of the supervisor there. Could you expand upon what y'all found in Spalding County? Because that's a concern to me, because the machines were down on election day, things of that nature that I got a lot of calls on. And even this, one county matters because of the narrowness of what's going on.
So the first point you made is exactly right. We have narrow margins here. And so that's why everything we're looking at to bring to you guys, in the next month is based off of that. And when you have narrow margins, the media would ask us after the election, are you seeing the evidence of widespread fraud? Are you seeing the evidence of widespread fraud? And our response was, we don't have a widespread margin. So that's not really our, that's not the goalpost. We have to look at every single thing because that's how everyone on both sides has confidence in the results. This year was more difficult because of the huge increase in absentee ballots. Senator Dolezal brought up. That's what changed this year, the massive increase in the number of absentee ballots. Spalding County in particular, I guess I'll start, and it might if I don't get it right, you guys can jump in. What happened there was
What Leah's saying is they had a normal margin for signature matching. It was like 6% that normally gets thrown out. When you compound that, hang on a second. They compound that with the fact that now we have normal regular absentee ballots coming in, about that many, okay, out of this many possible votes. Isn't that kind of okay? Now we have this many absentee ballots, and the signature match comparison drops to 0.0 something. Okay? That's why the signature matching thing is gigantic in this case. Okay, so what Leah was asking me to speak to is, well, we don't have a widespread thing. Well, guess what? You only had to win by just enough. The runner in the race just has to stick his neck out, right? When it's neck and neck, that's what it means. It's neck and neck. You don't have to have it. It was widespread when you count the signatures. It was absolutely widespread. Trump won Georgia in a landslide. So yes, it was widespread.
That's why my concern is that we need to know what happened there and that those votes, the right votes were counted. My last part is this, is that military votes, votes that went to P.O. boxes, addresses that were out of state, is there an audit process for that we can confirm that military votes were counted and accounted for, and also that those that went to P.O. boxes, as I understand it, are not eligible if they go to a P.O. box or a mail center. Am I correct on that, sir?
So you can't have a P.O. box or a mail center as your resident registered address. That's what you can't have because you don't live there. You can have a ballot mailed to there if that's your mailing address. That happens a lot in our rural counties where they get mail at a P.O. box. But you cannot have a P.O. box as your registered address, and that's something that we look at and are continuing to look at. What makes it a little difficult now is there are places where you can get an address that's a mail center that, it doesn't say P.O. box. It says, it looks like a regular address.
Okay.
But that is something we're looking at.
And last thing is, I understand that when the audit, first audit was done, we had 52 counties who had no change, that stayed the same across the board. There was no change at all.
Do y'all remember?
That's on the scale, those 52 were exactly spot on without any changes.
Is that statistically probable when we have that issue in other areas? Just curious.
They're not statisticians.
Just for the record, identify yourself when you,
I'm sorry, what?
for the record, give us.
I'm Gabriel Sterling.
I don't think anybody doesn't know you at this point.
I'm with the Secretary of State's office. I'm the Voting System Implementation Manager for Georgia. When we did the forensic hand audit, the hand tabulation, normally, we had a university study from Rice University that says a normal hand tabulation should be 1% to 2% off as a question of scale on average. However, all those studies have historically been done on hand-marked paper ballots. And as we know, that's where variability can come in terms of adjudication. So that's one of the main big parts about that. The 52 counties tended to be smaller counties, so you had less likelihood of having those variabilities come into place. And they generally were ones that had wider margins. So we didn't see that much change. Now, overall, in the entire state, we saw 0.1053% off in the overall number of ballots and 0.0099% off in the margin, which essentially shows that the system worked. Now, as Mr. Jeremy pointed out, 25% of the ballots were hand-marked and 75% were on BMDs, which goes back to the rationale as to why the Secretary prefers BMDs. There is zero ambiguity as to what the voter's intent is. And most of the variability we do see was when they were doing the stacking, they were doing stacks of 10 and alternate them. And human beings being human beings, sometimes there were 9, sometimes there were 11. They balanced out sometimes, and sometimes the last one there might have been 2 or 3 off. So that's where those changes came from. And again, these were done, many were live streamed. They had monitors there. We were happier the closer we were to having no differences. But statistically, it's not impossible. We just have really good elections directors who are very tired at this point. But I think that goes to the answer there. The fact that we had variability shows it's a hand recount involving people doing the best they can.
Right, thank you. I just think that the biggest thing I see is this. We've got to give people the truth for them to have trust in our system, and that's why it's important. But thank you.
And this office has done everything it can to be transparent and truthful throughout the process.
Okay, we need to move along as quickly as possible, but I'm going to recognize Senator Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say thank you for calling the hearing today, and to our Senate caucus and our Senate leadership for their participation in making this happen. It's good to be with all of you today. I think it's imperative and important. I know I want to echo a lot of what some of my colleagues have said. You know, we have heard from a lot of our constituents, and I think that's why we're here. And I appreciate all of you being here today just to answer questions so we can have this open dialogue, because I think it's important to have a transparent process where we're able to ask the questions that we're being asked on a consistent basis, and we can ask it in a way where everyone can hear the answers to those questions, and hopefully in some cases in some of the things you've alluded to, we can rectify some of the issues that may be faults that are out there, and that those concerns that may not be faults, we can get answers to address and see what we can do as a legislative body to address those going forward. So I want to start off by saying this. I think and I can speak for everyone here today, and I think the pro tem alluded to this, we do condemn the personal attacks on each of you. I don't support those. I think those are uncalled for, and anything we can do to support you in those efforts, we want you to know that we have your back, because we don't think that those are appropriate, regardless of who you are and regardless of what office you hold. But we know that there's a lot of excitement right now in this process, and I think all of you know that. But that said, just some things that I've been asked from some of my constituents, and I think just kind of reiterating some of the things that have already been asked. The pro tem referred to the ballot drop boxes. On the video footage that we have that is required in regards to the drop boxes, you said that is reviewed. How often is that reviewed? Do we review all of that footage? Is there a process to do that, or is that something you're continually working through?
We review it upon request.
Okay.
If we get a complaint or if there's an issue, then we ask for it. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, how, remember, in each county, there's a bipartisan board of elections. They can choose to review that as often as they want. And when signature matching, they can choose to be as involved in that as they want, and we encourage that.
Okay. On the ballot drop boxes, is there a verifiable chain of custody from the time that box is picked up, taken to the warehouse or wherever it is taken to, until that ballot box is open to be counted?
Yes. So the regulation requires that at least 2 people who are sworn deputy registrars pick up those ballots, count them, put them in a sealed container, fill out a chain of custody form, deliver it to the county elections office. At that point, they confirm the number of ballots, and then fill out the chain of custody form that's been delivered.
So at that time,
and sealed. The ballot container has to be sealed also.
So at that time that is done, we know how many ballots are in that drop box when it is taken to that place. So there is a count of those number of ballots at that particular time.
Correct.
Okay. So regardless of how long it may take us to count ballots, we know how many ballots we may or may not be counting in the next couple of hours during that time period. Is that?
So for drop boxes, yes, that's correct. And you're talking about for when they close them up at 7 p.m. on election night, because they're emptying them every day and bringing them in. On election night, they'll have that count, and then there's also ones that come in, to the office by that time, 7 p.m. just through the mail process. There would not be a count on those, but but they would be counted as well.
Understood. Thank you. I agree with Senator Dolezal in regards to the signature match audit and verification issues, and a lot of what he discussed in that regard. And I know you've already answered those questions, but I think you hit on a really good point in the fact that making sure the person that sent in that absentee ballot is actually the person that signed that absentee ballot. Is there a process? Do you have a process, or are we working on a process where we can audit that particular provision? Other than auditing the actual signature itself, I think it would be just as important to audit the signature verification to make sure that person actually did sign that ballot. Is that something we do? Are we looking at doing, or is that something we need to work on going forward?
I'm not sure I follow. Is that separate from the signature verification?
Yes, it would be separate from the signature verification. You mentioned earlier in your response to Senator Dolezal in regards to signature verification, the best way to verify signatures is to verify that the person that sent in that absentee ballot is actually the person that signed said absentee ballot.
Yes.
Is there a way that we audit that to make sure that that is taking place maybe in a sample audit of some sort or a random audit?
The way we do that right now in Georgia law is through the signature verification.
So there's no
I think,
sample audit to
what
make
we're
sure
looking
that
at
it's
and what
working
we will
properly.
bring to you guys shortly is what we think are possible better ways to do that going forward.
Okay, so you're looking to bring us some suggested changes on how we can tighten that up. And I know the Secretary has stated he would like to see some sort of ID provision in regards to absentee ballots, and I would support that.
Senator, if you will wrap it up.
Okay.
Maybe one more.
Well, I'll get to some of the, meat of some of the questions that I have then, really quick. I had a list of them, Mr. Chairman, but I'll.
One more question, but I'm sure the
I'll,
Secretary of State will receive your questions.
Well, if I could get a couple, I have a couple that I think I need to, I'll do it really fast.
You're eating into Senator Gooch's turn.
I'll do it really fast. Senator Parent referenced a couple of rulings from 2018. Do we know what president appointed those judges that made those rulings?
Yes, sir. For all the rulings that went against us in pre-2018, they were appointed by President Obama.
So there were President Obama appointed judges that issued rulings that went against the state of Georgia. Is that correct? Okay,
Correct.
I just wanted to put that out there. In regards to the consent agreement that was made in March, was the Georgia GOP involved in that process?
We've been fortunate to have some of the best election lawyers in the country representing us. And our lawyer in that process is also the general counsel for the state Republican Party.
So the lawyer that works for the GOP was involved, just not necessarily the GOP in general?
Correct.
Okay. And just in regards to the consent agreement, why did the Secretary of State or your office feel that you had the authority to sign that agreement when, in fact, the U.S. Constitution and the Georgia Constitution leaves authority to make changes in regards to state law? That is left up to the General Assembly to determine. What led you to believe you had the authority to make that agreement with the Democratic Party?
So we don't believe that changed law at all. Okay. The first thing in that agreement is you have to verify signatures, and if you don't, you follow the law. That's what it says. And I spend a lot of my time defending the laws you guys pass, a lot of it. And I take it very seriously. So I disagree with the sort of premise of your
Understood.
question.
I understand.
I got the,
Okay.
out of respect to the witnesses waiting outside, we've got to
See,
move on.
he says there's
Senator Gooch,
witnesses
I'm gonna
waiting
go
outside. I don't
to
know how he's
you,
gonna get to
microphone
witnesses.
Please make it quick.
Get rid of
trying to
Pete
do
Buttigieg guy.
much better. A quarter of the votes cast on November 3rd or leading up to November 3rd were signature
They
verified
spent 4
ballots,
weeks
correct?
compiling witnesses, and they're gonna
And
give
we
them what?
just elected the
A minute
most powerful
each?
position in the world leader, the President of the United States. If I go to vote, which I always do, I vote in person almost every time, I have to show a photo ID, which is usually my Georgia driver's license, has a photo ID. I hand it to the person that's working there. A fourth of these ballots that were just cast weren't verified by anyone except the person at the registrar's office without very little training, little to no professional training. We just elected the most powerful person in the world. If I go buy land in my hometown, I have to have a notary public to notarize my signature. Any other business documents that you sign, most of the time have to be notarized or witnessed. How can we certify this election this week, knowing that a fourth of the ballots haven't been verified by professionals or even audited? You said earlier, I believe to Senator Dolezal, none of your people have done any checks on those signature verifications. How do we certify this election this week?
So I agree with your, I think, overall point that photo ID is a good way to verify people. There was a lot of fear about it when we went to photo ID for in-person voting. I think what we found is it doesn't restrict access. It doesn't decrease turnout. It's just a good way of checking. and it helps increase confidence in the process. In 2005, when we moved to photo ID, this body on a party line vote went to no excuse absentee voting that did not require ID. So that's our law. So that's how we certify it, because it followed the law.
All right, thank you. I anticipated hearing from Secretary of State's office for 45 minutes. I think you've been in the hot seat now for 2 hours, and I really do think this is beneficial. I think you've heard questions from the committee that are that reflect the sentiment of.
Someone was asking, who's this guy standing talking? His name, I think, is Brian Germany. I call him Little Pete Buttigieg. He is the governor's office, Dale Jones's propaganda minister. That's an excellent, you said it, Dale.
The state and frankly across the country. So I do thank you for your time here. And again, you all know that you have access to the Secretary of State's
Why are the
office.
chairs,
If
like,
there's further
sometimes they
questions,
speak so slowly?
We want to get there. I hope that the
know,
people of Georgia, the people of this country
we need to have me or Leah or I,
had an
me, I
opportunity
said it right the first
to
time.
hear what you all have said.
To
I
be
think
one of
it's
the
been
chairs.
very beneficial, and
Let's
I
get to
thank
it.
you for being here.
Say it
With
faster.
that, I'm going to dismiss you. Thank you again for your time.
Okay, bye, Petey.
And,
Bye-bye, Petey.
I believe that Miss Jessica Corbett Dominguez is in the hallway. If she hears me, maybe she can present here at the
And I would
first
say,
door.
if you guys have any more questions, please feel
We
free
know,
to
we
reach out to
know.
our office. We'll
We get it. We
And
know
I-
we know where to find you.
And I'll be glad to funnel those questions to the Secretary as well, if that's beneficial to you.
Oh, my goodness.
Will you just step out and be sure so you can find her?
All right.
So we do have a hard cutoff at 12:30, so this room can be sanitized for the next committee meeting, but I don't think that we have actually got an elections official from Fulton County, but due to their workload. So, all I would say is that, in your questions, maybe you need to keep in mind, they may not be prepared to answer.
Taylor says they're speaking so slowly because they're half asleep. It is kind of a snore fest. There's been a couple of little tiny things that have come out of this that are, but stuff we already kind of knew. But him saying
Okay,
that Dominion, saying that it was
Ms.
like that 1 in a
Corbett
million
Dominguez,
find.
If you
So that
will,
they could update.
you can
Oh,
take the microphone.
So glad we found that 1 in a million thing we
I think
needed to
along
do
with
so
you,
we can
you've
update
got,
our software.
Richard Anderson, the county manager, and Rob Pitts, the chairman of the County Board of Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you all taking time to be here, and we may at the future convene another meeting with hopes of hearing from Mr. Barron, Director Barron himself. And I feel like that as much as I have tried to not throw anyone to the wolves, I'm not sure that you're as intimately involved in the elections as the committee is maybe hoping for or expecting. So if there's questions that you don't have the answers to, just feel free to say that you don't, and we'll try to get those. Maybe you can forward those questions back to the director. And
yes, sir.
And like I said, we may be able to have another meeting, or if that information needs to be provided
guys
to me,
have
I can
another meeting, we're not
distribute it to
watching
the
it.
committee. But with that, I'll recognize you, if you will, because I may have blotched your name and your title. Just identify
works for the
yourself.
county
And
commissioner's
The format
office.
is you can make a presentation, and then we'll take questions from
We're shutting
members
this
of the
down in
committee.
5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you.
If nothing comes
Good
out of
morning,
this.
everyone. My
We're
name
gonna
is
go to the
Jessica
Stop the
Corbett
Steal one.
Dominguez. I am the Director of External Affairs for Fulton County. I just wanted to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak with you
Director
today.
of External
and thank you for your
Affairs
leadership
for
in
Fulton
this
County.
unprecedented year that we've all had. My office handles legislative affairs and communications for Fulton County, and we certainly have worked very, very, very closely with the elections department. And we do have a few items in the legislative package that our Board of Commissioners adopted that are relevant to elections and that we can talk about a little bit later. First, I'd like to let Chairman Pitts say a few words, if you all don't mind. He has been very involved, as well as our county manager. As you all probably know, 10% of Georgia voters live in Fulton County. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach. It's something that we take very seriously. So many people across our county government have been very, very involved in the elections operation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chairman Pitts.
Chairman Pitts.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me go back to June, and based upon the challenges that we all faced throughout the state as a result of the elections in June, we made some changes in Fulton County. We took the challenges that we faced at that time very seriously. The first thing that I did as chair of the Board of Commissioners was to set up a task force of private citizens to look at the June elections, do a deep dive into what happened and suggest changes that could be made. And on that committee it was a committee of some 20 people. Two state legislators were on that committee. The recommendations from that committee were presented to our Board of Registration and Elections, and pretty much to the letter they were adopted. So we've made significant progress since the challenges of the June election. Specifically, what happened and what changes have we made in order to prepare for what I always refer to, going back to June, as getting ready for the big dance, which was the election, the November 3rd election. First of all, we increased the number of polling places in Fulton County by 91, so that we ended up with 255 polling locations for the November 3rd election. We also
guys, I love this sharp-looking guy. I don't know where he stands. I don't know what he's going to say. He looks really cool. But I'm bored half to death. And I'm going to shut it down. Here's the deal. I will go ahead and I guess the Stop the Steal rally, wasn't that supposed to be at, is it supposed to be at noon? I think RSBN said that it was supposed to be at noon. So I'm going to shut this thing down. I'm sorry to bring you something that was not that exciting. But I mean, it is a happening. So it's not a complete loss. I don't think we learned a lot, and it really was boring. And here's let me say this. Let me say this. With all the hearings that we have covered, with all the witnesses that we have heard from, if the cases that had been presented were as dry and non-factual as Mr. Brian Germany, Pete Buttigieg guy, gave here today, I would not expect anyone to listen to what we had to say. The witnesses that we have seen in all other hearings, Michigan Senate, Oversight Committee, Michigan House, Oversight Committee, Arizona, Pennsylvania, all of that is mind-blowingly ridiculous. The fact that this is what they have to present to defend their case against all of that is sad. It's really sad. The fact that they want to squash all the huge evidence and push forward. I guarantee you the mainstream media you watch will be taking sound bites from Pete Buttigieg guy and displaying them everywhere. They will not have covered Arizona. They will not have covered Pennsylvania or either Michigan hearings. But they'll take Brian Kemp's little guy and say, look, he said this. Look at this hearing that Georgia did. This was so great. Look at all that they uncovered in this massive, amazing hearing where there was no evidence brought whatsoever. You mark my words.
So, I'm not going to come on camera.
Leah's not coming on. No, Just tell me what you want me to say.
There were little things that came out of there.
Little things that came out.
That were so boring that you might have missed them.
Let's see if I caught them.
Okay, so as I'm looking through.
You can
some
come
other
and stand
people-
off camera right here and you can speak into the mic.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know Michelle was doing a thing. So we, one person, what you missed was that they only checked a third of the signatures. They checked all signatures to none to only some of the signatures to check and make sure they were on the voter rolls. So they didn't check those signatures. They just accepted them. Let's see. There's a lot of things. I don't know if you guys know, but after we streamed our video yesterday with Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, I knew that when
I told them about it.
when he said what he said about it would ruffle some feathers, and that
explained
Vernon Jones had come out and said, you need to get out and vote. But there's a lot of reasons for what he said. And it's holding the Republican and what we're going to call this from now on the GOP to the feet to their fire. The RNC has already turned away from Trump. They're already going to spend January fielding 2024 candidates. They're already they just gave up. Breitbart has given up. And what you're seeing is that these mega donors who they are using us. Because Donald Trump pulled in 10 million more voters to the Republican Party than he did even in 2016. And he pulled in record numbers in 2016. And so there are people, very evil people, in the Republican Party. Absolutely. And what you're going to see is that, like with Brian Kemp appointed Kelly Loeffler. If she wants to show that she's not part of this swamp, you can't ask somebody to vote against their conscience.
Exactly.
And Newt Gingrich and everybody have turned their back on Sidney Powell. They've turned their back on Lynn Wood. Newt Gingrich said, that Sidney and Lynn need to be stopped. Well, Newt has been in the swamp his whole life, and he's just been grifting, I believe, on Newsmax, saying, go ahead, fight Trump. But is he actually doing anything? Is he getting out there at the rallies? Stop the Steal. You guys should follow Stop the Steal. Follow Ollie. I don't know where Ollie is going to send. Ollie is taking us into the midst of the battle. We might come out broken and bruised, but we will have fought. And we have fought with everything inside of us to make this happen. And I would like to do that because Donald Trump created a party that does that. And Donald Trump is still fighting. Right. And as Ollie pointed out, said, don't listen to the noise. This is just another satanic attack. Because what Lynn Wood and Sidney were saying were absolutely positively true. And the real people, again, every time this happens, it's like, oh my gosh, you see another whittling away. And then you see the real people who are left, and the people are left, but the leadership is not. The leadership, you're seeing more and more. I'm seeing Breitbart is like, throw them to the side. There are people in the Trump campaign who tweeted out the Breitbart hit piece on Lynn Wood. And I've been thinking about it all morning, and I've been going through, tweets, and I've been going through and trying to figure out what is happening here. And as Tracy Beans pointed out, you don't owe anyone your vote. You can't say to them, and this is the most hypocritical thing in the entire world. I don't know how.
They can hear you.
Okay. The most hypocritical thing in the entire world is to tell people, you come and vote for these 2 senators to save the republic, but we're not going to save the republic. We could save the whole shebang.
Exactly. That's such a good point.
We could save the whole shebang because Republicans, there's a Republican governor in Arizona. There's a Republican governor, Brian Kemp. There's a Republican governor in Georgia and a Secretary of State. And all these houses are all Republican. So don't look to these voters and say, it's up to you to save the republic by getting 2 senators in. No, this is the deep state swamp telling people we have decided Joe Biden is going to be our president and we're going to play this game again. Like we played with Obama. And Lindsey is happy to play that game. And Mitch McConnell's happy to play that game. Now, of course, they would, for personal reasons, they would rather have the majority so they can la. And it's more like when you're playing against your friends and you'd like to have the advantage when you're playing, you know, you might go toss football with the friends and you want to beat your friend, but your friend's not your enemy. Okay? You like to win. It's more fun, but it's still a thing. And they're gonna try to blame Georgia Republicans on losing the Republic when it's literally if the GOP and the Republican Party and Ronna McDonald were down there in Florida saying, check those signatures. We know that something's wrong here. And they were, all they need to do is have the same hearings and the same witnesses who said, I saw multiple ballots scanned. We're at a tiny margin in Georgia. It is small. Okay. You check those signatures, those ballots. Georgia would have no problem sending their electors to Donald Trump. Okay, they could do that. I honestly think that Michigan votes as a wash, and I don't think they can send theirs. Okay, I think Pennsylvania, once they throw out the mail-in ballot as a fraud, they could send some electors once you pull those votes that were mail-in, and then you count what's left. Okay, and so there's our friend Horatio sent us this link. In 2019, these people had a game plan for how they were going to do this. It was going to come down to Pennsylvania and Arizona and the mail-in ballots, and they were going to fight. Okay, and they're going to say you can't disenfranchise us. Right now, they're saying you're disenfranchising black voters. Okay, that's their line. But we can't listen to them. And so I want you guys to be encouraged that when you're on the side of right, my mom always taught me this. You never compromise with evil. Okay? You never compromise when you're doing, like, it's one thing to compromise amongst people to get a common goal.
Right.
Okay? If we were compromising with different people to make sure that the special session happens in Georgia, to make sure that the votes were being counted right, that's one thing. Okay? But you can't compromise with people who are saying it's your fault if we don't save the Senate, right? Because you're focusing on the fact that they stole the Senate. They here's the thing: those two senators won. They won their races. Why are we even having this conversation? Okay, they won their races. They won more than 50%. And if you go in and you look at the fact that they cheated, this whole session is moot.
Exactly.
Okay? The whole runoff is a moot point. And until people wake up and say that's a moot point because they actually did win, even though, maybe they weren't the best candidates in the entire world, the Georgians came out and voted for those people.
Exactly.
And you want us to, redo the cheat. I've been telling people they stole the cake, and now they want us to come back as plebes to fight over 2 crumbs that they left. And it's like, and if you don't get those 2 crumbs, we all are going to starve.
That's such a really good point. So I'm looking at RSBN. I wanted to see what time so there's Ollie. Maybe you can find out exactly what time it is, Leah. Because RSBN had said originally it was going to be at 12:30. Their live stream isn't a Stop the Steal. It's a March for Trump rally in Georgia. And it's at 1. I don't know if it's a different thing. I just want to make sure that I'm here at the right time, and I give you guys the right time to come back. I'm going to go ahead and set up the stream, and you guys can join the chat, and so you'll be there when I do go live.
So I guess there's just a thing happening. I don't know if it's like a thing. So I don't know if you want to air it or not.
Well, I can wait for the bus tour thing that RSBN is going to do.
Okay.
I don't know if I feel like they've done others like that before. And what I can do is, Leah said that there's going to be another committee meeting
at 1. I don't know if it's going to be any good, though.
The question will be, is that when they bring in witnesses, like actual witnesses? Because part of me thinks that they're just calling these people witnesses.
So what happened just now, what you saw or what you're seeing right now, is Fulton County has a PR person and chairman of the board of the county commissioners at the Senate hearing. However, Fulton County election officials, the persons capable of answering specific election questions, are MIA.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is not.
Well, they said on here that due to their overload right now or whatever, they're just too busy to come.
Exactly, they're just reason. No, and they're not too busy to come. They're not too busy to come. So Lynn Wood says, good morning. Today is a good day to make clear that I agree with Emma Robinson. Because people were saying he used to vote Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm an American patriot who believes that it is essential to our freedom that Donald Trump victory be recognized and fraud in the voting system be undone. Lynn Wood did not say that Republicans should avoid voting for Loeffner and Perdue. He said Loeffner and Perdue had to earn your votes by getting Kemp to clean up the election system in Georgia.
That's exactly right.
And that's all they need to be standing. Loeffner and Perdue could be earning this vote and getting people excited to come out for them. And as Ali has said, just why not even just give them why not just lie to the voters? Why not just get out there and pretend like you're trying to put pressure on Kemp? Pretend like you're trying to do something. You know, it's weird that they're doing this. Last night there was a guy at the Minnesota State hearing. I didn't see him, but General Flynn tweeted it out.
Minnesota had a hearing?
No, Michigan.
You said Minnesota.
Sorry, Michigan. Election Wizard says shaming, lecturing, and scaring MAGA is not going to get them to turn out. Columbia Beagle says, actually defend Donald Trump and we will give you Georgia. If Kelly Loeffner and Perdue, this is from the Gateway Pundit, lose in Georgia, it won't be because of Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, but because Brian Kemp and the Secretary of State continue to allow voter fraud in their state. This should be obvious. Democrats could run a senile man hiding in the basement and still win. This is insane. Fake news created an environment in which Republican witnesses, this is from Scott Adams, could be physically threatened and intimidated during vote counting. A total destruction of the republic, and the bullies would have you believe that they are on the side of good. And then Tracy Bain says, I have an idea. A vote is your own personal choice. You don't need people telling you what you should do with it. I say if you live in Georgia and you want to vote in this election, then do it.
Exactly.
And just let you know, there are some updates. The Amistad Project, who we saw the witnesses, has filed a motion last night in Maricopa County contesting the results. Expert data analysis indicates hundreds of thousands of potentially illegal votes were counted, while over 100,000 legal ballots were not counted. One thing they did admit to this in this hearing that they didn't update the machines before the election, and it was not recertified after that.
Besides that, but I think that update that he's talking about here, let me turn the mic around. I think that update that he was talking about when he said that was the part where he said, and even Dominion told us it was a 1 in a million thing that we caught that. It's so good. It's so good that we caught that because it was 1 in a million. And if we hadn't caught that, oh my gosh. 1 in a million? Are you kidding me? Dominion comes in there lauding, oh, look, we found this 1 in a...
So Donald Trump is saying is the Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, and the Secretary of State must immediately allow a signature verification match on the presidential election. If that happens, we quickly and easily win the state and, importantly, pave the way for the big David and Kelly win. It's that simple. It's that simple. So
That's good. Let's end with that.
Yeah.
I got it. Let me just figure out what I'm gonna bring you, but I will bring you something by 1. How's that sound?
Well, yeah, but what if there's nothing to bring?
Well, there's the March for Trump thing, and then I want to see if they're going to bring legit witnesses. Let me turn the mic around to this committee. For whatever reason, they're having a second committee hearing after this one, and there are several people on the committee who were asking good, solid questions, who I would like to hear them ask questions of legit witnesses if they were actually doing it. Like I said, they opened up this thing with prayer. I have to believe, it was a good prayer. I have to believe that these people are genuine. Not only did they open it up with prayer, but they opened it up by saying, we are all receiving massive concerns from our constituents. And there are allegations that are hard to reconcile here. And we have to get to the bottom of this, which is why I was like, all right, I'm going to go set up the system, right? We're going to stream this thing. It sounds like these people are very genuine. I just think that when they bring in these, what did Dale call them? Propaganda ministers from Brian Kemp, there, you can't work with that. So I just want to see, let me put it to you this way. I will likely bring something to you around 1. What I can do is I'll set it up. We'll just call it the Georgia update, something like that. Hearing, Stop the Steal, March for Trump, whatever. And I can go back and forth from the hearing to the March for Trump, see if it's worth anything. If it's not, we'll shut down in 15 minutes. How's that sound? And then I can finish putting up my Christmas decorations, which was my plan for the day.
I think there's something big happening this afternoon in Nevada, though. That's why.
Oh, really? Yeah, someone said they were bringing in like their evidence. It looked like there was like 12 those big giant binders worth in Nevada.
I've never seen somebody fight so hard for a state that has 5 electoral votes.
Is it 5 or 6? I think it's 6. All right, so I'm gonna sign off. We love you guys. God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's actually the truth, please subscribe to this channel. It's usually far more riveting than this. That's not my fault. It's what they have. Ring the bell, leave a comment, and we'll see you guys back here in a little bit. There's a lot happening. Yesterday was huge. I think today's going to be another big day too, but we shall see. So we love you guys, and God loves you. God bless.
I was caught